In the dark pit of shadows, thousands of aliens wait for blood. Today, the prey is a lone human in chains. High above, Princess Lyra watches. She thinks humans are weak, but she is about to be proven wrong. The heavy gates grind open. A 12-foot stone monster roars. The crowd screams, waiting for the human to be crushed. The beast charges at full speed. The human closes his eyes, breathes, and then, he simply disappears. The roar of the crowd in the pit of shadows was like a constant storm. Thousands of aliens from every corner of the galaxy filled the massive stadium. They had come to see blood. In the very center of the dusty arena stood a man named Jax. To the giant, multi-eyed creatures in the stands, Jax looked like a tiny, fragile toy. He was covered in dirt, his clothes were torn, and heavy iron chains pulled at his wrists. He looked tired, as if he had been traveling for 1,000 years. High above the arena, sitting on a throne made of glowing crystal, was Princess Lyra. Her skin was a soft blue, and her eyes sparkled like stars. She was the leader of the most powerful race in the galaxy. Lyra looked down at Jax with a look of pity. In her history books, humans were described as a weak race that had vanished long ago because they were too soft for this cruel universe. She didn't understand why the arena master had even bothered to bring a human here. To her, this wasn't a fight, it was just a sad ending for a lonely creature. Suddenly, a loud horn echoed through the stadium. The massive iron gates on the far side of the arena began to grind open. From the darkness, a nightmare stepped out. It was a Kargath, a 12-foot tall beast with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like solid gray stone. Every time the beast took a step, the ground shook. The Kargath roared, a sound so loud it vibrated in the chests of everyone watching. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, laughing as he told the crowd that the little human would be crushed in less than 10 seconds. The Kargath looked at Jax and saw an easy meal. It began to beat its chest with its 4 heavy fists, making a sound like drums of war. The crowd went wild, screaming for the beast to tear the human apart. But Jax did not move. He did not scream, and he did not beg for mercy. Instead, he did something that made the stadium go quiet for a moment. He looked up at the sun, took a deep breath, and his face became very calm. Jax slowly reached down and grabbed the locks on his chains. With a sudden, sharp twist of his hands, the metal snapped. The heavy chains hit the sandy floor with a loud clang. He rubbed his red wrists for a second and then looked directly at the Kargath. He didn't have a sword. He didn't have a shield. He didn't even have a knife. Jax simply raised his hands, tucked his chin, and stood in a classic boxing stance. His eyes, which had looked tired before, were now sharp and cold like ice. Princess Lyra leaned forward, her heart skipping a beat. She had never seen a prisoner act this way. Usually, they ran or cried. Why was this human standing his ground? The Kargath, annoyed by the human's lack of fear, let out a final roar and charged. It was like a mountain of stone rushing forward at full speed. The ground cracked under its weight. The beast raised all 4 of its arms to crush Jax into the dirt. The crowd gasped as the beast reached him. It looked like Jax was about to disappear under a mountain of muscle and stone. But just as the Kargath's shadow covered him, Jax closed his eyes for a split second. He breathed out. As the beast's fists smashed down, Jax moved. He didn't run away, he moved into the beast's blind spot with a speed that no human should have. In the blink of an eye, Jax was gone. The beast hit nothing but dust. The screen fades to black as the entire stadium stands up in total shock. The silence in the stadium was heavier than the roar had been. For a few seconds, nobody dared to breathe. The dust from the Kargath's massive impact began to settle, revealing a crater in the center of the ring. The beast turned its huge, rocky head, looking for the tiny human it thought it had crushed. But Jax was not under its fists. He was standing calmly 2 meters behind the beast's left leg. He hadn't just dodged, he had moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a biological creature. The aliens in the stand started to whisper. They had seen many warriors, but they had never seen a creature move without making a sound. Princess Lyra leaned so far over the edge of her balcony that her guard stepped forward to protect her. Her heart was beating against her ribs like a trapped bird. She watched the way Jax stood, relaxed yet ready, like a spring waiting to be released. She noticed the sweat glistening on his skin and the way his eyes never left the beast. In her world, power was measured by the size of your ship or the heat of your laser. But this human was carrying his power inside his own body. She felt a strange pull toward him, a mixture of fear and deep admiration. She realized that everything her people knew about weak humans was a lie. This man was a master of a forgotten art. The Kargath, now embarrassed and furious, let out a scream that shook the glass windows of the VIP booths. It swung all four of its arms at once, creating a whirlwind of stone-hard fists. Jax didn't back away. Instead, he stepped into the storm. He moved inside the reach of the beast's long arms. To the audience, it looked like Jax was dancing with a monster. He ducked under a massive swing, stepped over a sweeping tail, and delivered a lightning-fast strike to the beast's upper knee. There was a sickening crack. The Kargath, a creature that could survive a ship crash, let out a howl of pain as its leg buckled. Jax had found the only weak spot in its stone-like armor. The crowd was now standing on their feet, but they weren't cheering for the beast anymore. They were staring at Jax in total awe. He was fighting a 12-foot monster with nothing but his bare hands, and he was winning. Jax didn't stop. He jumped onto the beast's broad back, grabbing the thick scales for balance. The Kargath tried to reach back and grab him, but Jax was too fast. He struck the base of the beast's neck with the edge of his hand, a precision hit designed to shut down the nervous system. The giant monster stumbled, its movements becoming slow and heavy. It was losing control of its own body. High above, the arena master, General Vark, was turning a dark shade of purple with rage. He had bet a fortune on his monster winning this fight. He couldn't let a human humiliate him. He looked at his control panel and pressed a button he wasn't supposed to use. Suddenly, the floor of the arena began to hum with blue electricity. A hidden gravity trap was activated, designed to make Jax's body feel 10 times heavier. Jax gasped as his knees hit the sand. The weight was crushing his lungs. He felt like a mountain was sitting on his shoulders. The Kargath, seeing its chance, slowly turned around, its eyes red with hate. Princess Lyra saw the general's hand on the control panel. She knew they were cheating. She saw Jax struggling to breathe, his muscles shaking under the invisible weight, yet he still refused to lie down. He looked up at the beast, his teeth gritted in a snarl of pure defiance. Even while being crushed by artificial gravity, the human was trying to stand back up. Lyra felt a tear run down her cheek. She had never seen such a beautiful, stubborn will to live. She whispered into the wind, her voice trembling, "He is fighting the universe itself. I wish he was mine, so I could protect him from this cruelty." The Kargath raised its largest fist, glowing with the energy of the arena's trap. It was going to finish Jax while he couldn't move. The beast's shadow fell over the human one last time. Jax looked up, his eyes turning a deep, dark red as the adrenaline surged through his veins. Just as the fist started to fall, Jax's fingers dug deep into the sand, and he let out a roar that sounded more like a lion than a man. The suspense was unbearable. Would his human heart explode under the pressure, or was he about to do something even more impossible? The air in the arena felt like it was turning into lead. Jax felt his bones groaning under the massive weight of the gravity trap. Every breath was a battle. Blood began to trickle from his nose, and his vision started to blur into a dark red haze. The Kargath stood over him, its stone fist glowing with energy, ready to turn Jax into a shadow on the floor. But humans have a secret that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten: the more you corner them, the more dangerous they become. Instead of collapsing, Jax's muscles began to bulge. He dug his fingers into the metal plates hidden beneath the sand and let out a scream that wasn't just pain, it was pure, unfiltered rage. With a sudden burst of hysterical strength, Jax did the impossible. He pushed against the floor so hard that the metal plating beneath him snapped. The gravity machine hummed, sparked, and then exploded in a shower of blue fire. The heavy weight vanished instantly. Jax didn't wait for the dust to clear. He launched himself forward like a bullet. He flew under the Kargatha's swing and delivered a massive, jumping punch to the beast's jaw. The sound was like a thunderclap. The 12-foot monster's head snapped back, and its giant body crashed into the arena wall, unconscious. The crowd didn't just go quiet, they were terrified. They had never seen a biological creature break a gravity trap with its own strength. Princess Lyra stood up from her throne, her hands trembling. She could see Jax's chest heaving as he stood over the fallen beast. He was covered in blood and sweat, his skin bruised and burnt, but he stood taller than any king she had ever met. She saw the general across the arena, his face pale with fear. She knew the general would never let a human live after proving his machines were weak. "Stop this!" Lyra shouted, her voice echoing through the stadium. "The human has won. He is free." But General Vark didn't listen. He looked at his elite, iron guards, 6 armed warriors wearing impenetrable armor and carrying electric spears, and gave a silent, deadly signal. Suddenly, the arena gates hissed open again. This time, it wasn't a monster. It was a squad of 12 iron guards. They moved in perfect formation, their spears humming with enough electricity to kill an elephant. The crowd began to boo, realizing the fight was no longer fair. The guards surrounded Jax, their shields overlapping to create a wall of steel. Jax was exhausted. His hands were shaking from the fight with the Kargath, and his legs felt like they were made of jelly. He looked around at the wall of spears and realized there was no way out. He looked up at Princess Lyra one last time, a small, sad smile on his face, as if he was saying goodbye. Princess Lyra felt a sharp pain in her heart. She couldn't sit and watch this hero be murdered by cowards. She looked at her own royal bodyguards and realized she had to make a choice, follow the rules of the galaxy or follow her heart. Below her, the iron guards closed the circle. One of them lunged forward, his spear grazing Jax's side. Jax spun, grabbing the spear with his bare hands. The electricity surged through his body, causing him to roar in agony, but he didn't let go. He pulled the guard forward with such force that the armored alien flew over his shoulder. Jax now had a weapon, but he was surrounded by 11 more. The suspense in the stadium was at its breaking point. Jax stood in the center, blood dripping from his hands, holding a stolen electric spear like a god of war. His eyes were no longer those of a tired prisoner, they were glowing with a cold, golden fire. He was ready to take every single guard down with him. The iron guards hesitated. They were professional killers, but for the first time in their lives, they were afraid of a man. Just as the guards prepared to charge all at once, Jax planted his feet and pointed the spear at General Vark's booth. He wasn't just trying to survive anymore, he was going for the head of the man who had cheated him. The screen goes dark just as Jax takes his first step toward the walls, leaving the audience wondering, can one man truly take on an entire empire? The stadium was vibrating with a sound that wasn't a cheer or a scream, it was the sound of pure, collective terror. Jax didn't wait for the iron guards to coordinate their next move. He knew that in a fight against many, speed was his only shield. He gripped the stolen electric spear, but instead of holding it like a soldier, he balanced it like a hunter. With a roar that silenced the guards, he threw the spear with such force that it pierced through the chest plates of 2 guards at once, pinning them to the arena wall. Now, he was barehanded again, just as the title of his legend promised. He rushed the remaining guards, sliding under their heavy spears and striking their joints with his bare fists. Each punch sounded like a hammer hitting an anvil. He was a blur of skin and muscle, moving so fast that the guards started hitting each other in their confusion. Princess Lyra watched from above, her breath catching in her throat. She saw Jax take a heavy blow to his ribs, a hit that would have killed any other alien, but the human only gritted his teeth and hit back harder. He grabbed the helmet of the lead guard and ripped it off with his bare hands, revealing a shocked alien face before knocking him unconscious with a single headbutt. Lyra realized then that humans didn't just survive, they conquered through sheer refusal to give up. Her heart was no longer just admiring him, she was terrified for him. She saw General Vark reaching for a secondary remote on his belt, a remote that would activate the self-destruct collars worn by all arena prisoners. The general wasn't going to let Jax win, he was going to blow him up in front of everyone. Jax saw the general's hand move. In that split second, the world seemed to slow down. Jax didn't look for a way out of the arena, he looked for a way up. He ran toward the smooth, vertical wall of the VIP section. The crowd screamed as the human began to run directly up the wall, using the gaps in the decorative stones as fingerholds. It was a feat of strength that defied gravity. The iron guards tried to shoot him down, but Jax was already too high. He vaulted over the gold railing of the general's private booth just as Vark pressed the button. A small spark hissed at Jax's neck, but the collar didn't explode, it fell off. In his rush to climb, Jax had scraped the collar against the sharp stone edge of the wall, damaging the trigger. Jax stood in the booth, his shadow falling over the trembling general. The silence that followed was absolute. Jax walked toward General Vark, his knuckles bloody and his chest heaving. The general pulled out a small laser pistol, his hand shaking violently. "Stay back, you animal!" Vark screamed. Jax didn't stop. He walked right into the aim of the gun, his eyes locked onto the general's. He didn't need a weapon because he was the weapon. Just as Vark was about to pull the trigger, a soft but firm hand grabbed the general's wrist. It was Princess Lyra. She didn't look at the general, she looked only at Jax. With a strength no one knew she had, she twisted the gun out of Vark's hand and tossed it over the railing. She then turned to the arena's speakers and spoke a single command that echoed across the planet: "This human has paid his debt in blood. By the ancient laws of the High Throne, I claim him. He is mine." The general tried to protest, but one look from Jax made him collapse into his seat. The iron guards below lowered their spears. The law of the princess was absolute. Lyra walked toward Jax, who was finally starting to feel the pain of his broken ribs and many cuts. She didn't care about the blood on his skin or the dirt on his face. She took off her royal silk cloak and wrapped it around his broad shoulders. For a moment, the fierce warrior vanished, and Jax looked at her with a look of deep, quiet gratitude. He realized that for the first time in his life, he wasn't a slave, a soldier, or a prisoner. He was a legend. The story of the bare-handed human spread across the galaxy like wildfire. It was the day the universe learned that while humans might look small and fragile, their spirit is made of a fire that cannot be put out. Jax left the arena not as a trophy, but as the new commander of Lyra's personal guard. As they walked out of the pit of shadows together, Lyra leaned in and whispered so only he could hear, "They thought you were a beast, but I saw the king inside you." Jax simply smiled, his eyes looking toward the stars. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was big, but it was finally starting to realize that you should never, ever challenge a human to a fair fight, because humans don't believe in losing.